Hello, movie lovers. Welcome back to SignaMovie channel. Today is all about fresh cinema experiences, and I can't wait to share my thoughts on the newest filmmaking its mark. Sit back, relax, and let's dive into the recap of this exciting cinematic adventure. The film opens during a thunderstorm in Maine in 1985, with lighthouse keeper Tom Curry discovering an injured woman lying unconscious on the shore. He takes her home, takes care of her, brings her food, and makes her identity fully clear as Queen Atlanta of Atlantis, an undersea kingdom very isolated from the surface. I want to be able to do that. Apparently, she fled to Earth to avoid a political marriage with King Orvax. Over time, she and Tom actually fall in love, and eventually have a son named Arthur. Atlanta, she believes, may someday be the one who brings their two worlds together. However, several years after Arthur's birth, their home is suddenly attacked by Atlantean soldiers sent by Orvax to retake Atlanta. Although she succeeds in eliminating this group of soldiers, she believes they will continue to pursue her. To ensure the safety of her family, she returns to Atlantis, but she promises Tom that she will return someday when it is safe. We then jump to the present, where a group of pirates led by Jesse Kane and her son David hijack a Russian nuclear submarine. Meanwhile, Jesse presents David with a special knife, explaining that it belonged to his father, who fought in World War II. She was the Navy's first combat swimmer and was given the code name Manta due to her stealth characteristics. But when he returned home, his homeland had forgotten him, so he became a pirate to make a living, using this knife as his signature weapon, and later gave Jesse handed it to David. Shortly after, a grown-up Arthur Curry rams the submarine, bringing it to the surface, then boarding the submarine, quickly overpowering the pirates and freeing the Russians trapped inside. However, he is attacked by Jesse and David, and quickly ends up dealing with them before attempting to get off the ship. However, this is interrupted again when Jesse fires a missile at him, and Arthur is able to evade it and instead makes contact with the submarine, leaving a hole and the ship beginning to flood. The force of the water then causes the torpedo to shatter Jesse's leg, leaving him trapped with David and unable to help. The latter pleads with Arthur to help free his father, but Arthur objects, as he has just killed innocent people and leaves. David is then forced to separate from his father after Jesse arms himself with a grenade and urges his son to leave quickly so he can survive and someday kill Aquaman. And that's what he did when the grenade exploded and Jesse was killed. Sometime later, King Orm, the current king of Atlantis and second son of Queen Atlanta, meets with King Nereus of the Kingdom of Zebel, and the two discuss the possibility of war against the surface world, as Orm believes. Discuss. You can threaten them and destroy their homes. However, Nereus believes that the lost nations and deserter kingdoms have long since perished, and that a rift made up entirely of animals cannot do so alone, and by law requires only one of the 7 kingdoms to withstand an attack. He reminded Orm that the 4 must unite. The remaining 2 kingdoms, Thor and Fisher, never join Atlantis. Nereus also questions Orm's true motives, believing that Orm only wants to become Ocean Master and therefore commander of the largest army on Earth. But while that may be true, Orm's fear of the surface world also seems justified. Orm quickly responds to a sudden attack by a Russian nuclear submarine, destroying the submarine with a trident given to him by his father. And this attack was enough to convince Nereus to join forces with Atlantis. Later that night, Arthur returns to Earth and meets Mara, King Orm's fiancée and daughter of King Nereus. Mara asks for help in ending the war between her kind and the land, ending the deaths of billions of people on both worlds, and she declares his throne is natural, as he is the eldest son of Queen Atlanta. Therefore, if he can find the lost trident of Atollan, a weapon with the power to rule the seas, the people will listen to him, and he will be able to usurp the throne of Orm. Initially refusing to help Atlantis or become king, Arthur quickly changes his mind after his father is nearly drowned in a massive water attack by Orm and his army, but the final it was stopped by Momoa. Protect them and remove water from Tom's lungs. With Arthur joining the fight against Mara, she then stows Mara to Atlantis, where she meets Nuitas Vorko, chief advisor to the Atlantean throne, but before her death, she promised Queen Atlanta that she would always protect Arthur. I understand that it was done, and he trains and mentors him throughout his youth, teaching him how to swim, communicate, and fight as an Atlantean, and finally reveals what happened to his mother and reveals that she is King Orvax. Explained that they were sacrificed in the war. After learning about his family on the ground, he heads to the trenches. Present day, in the year, Bolko gives Arthur an ancient recording that he believes contains the final message to the people of Atlan and the location of the sacred trident. Before we get into that, when all the kingdoms were conquered, King Atlan experimented by swallowing Atlantis into the sea. However, this turned out to be a blessing in disguise, as it gave them the ability to breathe underwater and build a new kingdom within it. However, due to his own actions, King Atlan chooses to spend the rest of his days in self-imposed exile, with neither he nor his trident ever seen again. To find them, Volko tells Arthur that he needs to take the recording to the deserter's kingdom to retrieve his message. But before that, they are suddenly attacked by Atlantean soldiers, and while Bolko and Mara are able to escape unnoticed by donning top hats, Arthur is arrested for illegal entry and brought before King Orm. Will be done. Arthur immediately challenges the throne in a contest for the throne, and Orm accepts, with the agreement that if he wins, the war will continue as planned. There they fight in front of all of Atlantis. And though Arthur tries his best to defeat his half-brother, he proves no match for him, as Orm ultimately cuts Arthur's trident in half and prepares to kill him. However, just before that happens, Mara knocks Orm back with a stream of water and helps Arthur escape to the surface. After a relatively short journey by land, the two finally arrive at the ruins of the deserter kingdom beneath the Sahara Desert, where they find an armory where the trident of Atlan was forged, and where they can play the recording. I did. Travel to hidden oceans beyond the ends of the world and find his trident by telling the bottle to search for a drawn path, visible only in the hands of a true king. They then destroy the recording and take the map from the bottle presented to them. The map points to the Italian island of Sicily, where he eventually looks into the bottle through the eyes of a statue of King Romulus and sees the path drawn on the map to the kingdom of the trident. Trench. This time, David Kane was also with us, as he was passing by Black Manta. As before, it is revealed that King Orm was working with David to fake a submarine attack. After Mara's betrayal and flight with Arthur, Orm himself had been forced by Marius not to kill her fiancé. So Orm met with Kane again and gifted him a prototype of the Atlantean armor so that he could kill her. However, while Mara eliminates the Atlantean soldiers, Black Manta is again defeated by Arthur and is thrown off a cliff, presumably to his death. Meanwhile, Orm and Marius head to the Fisher Kingdom and request the king, King Riku, to join them. But Riku refuses, arguing that it's time to come forward to educate the rural people, not destroy them. In response, Orm calls him and his people cowards and provokes them to attack. And when he does, Orm and Marius kill him and his men, and his wife, Queen Lena, and their daughter, Princess Scales, have no choice but to join them. Shortly after, Orm confronts Bolko and reveals that he knew of his loyalty to Arthur, but he claims that he has dedicated his life to Atlantis and wonders why Bolko would do such a thing. Embrace Volko then replies that despite being half Atlantean, Arthur is already twice the king of Orm, and Orm has Arthur arrested and exiled. Meanwhile, Arthur and Mara continue their journey to the trench, but Arthur believes that his plan will fail as he is unfit to be king, and thinks it would be better to just go home. However, Mara encourages him to continue his journey, believing that he can be a bridge between land and sea. Eventually, they pass through the creatures of the ocean trench and enter the hidden ocean. There, they were shocked to find Atlanta, who miraculously managed to survive there for 20 years and immediately embraced their son. She then reveals that she never returned to her home because the portal that took her there forbade them to return. The only way they can return is for Arthur to retrieve Atolan's trident. But to do so, they must overcome Calasan, a gigantic sea creature with immense power that has protected the trident even from the greatest champions for millennia. However, when Arthur confronts Calasan, Arthur's ability to communicate with him, who has not communicated with a mortal since King Atolan, shocks the creature. Arthur explains that although he does not think he is worthy, he must retrieve the trident because it is his only hope of saving his home and the people he loves. Calasan allows the attempt to free the trident from Atlan's hands, claiming that he can only do so if he is truly worthy. and luckily, he proves it by retrieving the trident and gaining power over the oceans, including Kharasan and the Trench. There he, Momoa, Atlanta, and his sea army take on the armies of Atlantis, Exabel, and Fisher, who attempt to force the Soul Kingdom to join them, leading to a massive battle in which Momoa finds his father. I did. When Arthur reveals that he's wielding a trident, the fisherman Nereus and his army stand down. Meanwhile, Arthur brings Orm to the surface, and a very close battle ensues. However, Arthur finally succeeds in overpowering Orm and destroying the trident. Clearly defeated, Orm begs his half-brother to kill him, as mercy is not the Atlantean way. However, Arthur decides not to do so until Atlanta joins them, and after hugging Orm explains that land and sea have been victorious, and there is no need to shed any more blood. Before Orm, he is then arrested by Bolko and imprisoned in Atlantis, while the inhabitants welcome a new king. Shortly after, Atlanta reunites with Tom for the first time in 20 years. The two share a much-needed hug, and the film ends with Arthur's narration. Tom announces that he is the son of the land, the king and protector of the sea. Aquaman of the deep sea. In a mid-credits scene, a still-alive Black Manta is seen being rescued at sea by Dr. Aquaman, the Atlantis-obsessed marine biologist. Stephen Singh is found tending to Manta's wounds and asking her how she obtained the Atlantean armor. But before he answers, Manta wants to know where Aquaman can be found. And the movie ends here. Thanks for watching our video. If you enjoyed this film recap and want more, subscribe now, like, and share captivating stories with your friends. Tell me which movie you'd like me to summarize next. See you soon.